So let us now discuss the digestive system or different parts of the digestive system of human being. So we can start with the first part of the alimentary canal, that is the mouth and buccal cavity. Clear? So we will start with mouth and buccal cavity. Now, what role they play for the digestion process? Mouth, as we know that the opening of the buccal cavity is called the mouth. Now, what role it can play? It helps for the ingestion process. So, mouth helps for ingestion. The first part of the nutrition, that is ingestion process, that is helped by the mouth. And after the food enters into the buccal cavity. Now, which one is the buccal cavity? The inner part of our mouth is the buccal cavity. So, what are the different parts present in the buccal cavity? So, the buccal cavity contains one accessory gland, or it has the opening of one accessory gland, as well as it has two more parts. So, it has teeth, tongue, and opening of salivary gland. Okay, opening of salivary gland. Right. So, the salivary gland is not a part of the buccal cavity. Rather, it is present on the side of the buccal cavity, and the tubes, the ducts which bring the secretion of this gland, they open into the buccal cavity. That is why when we read about the buccal cavity, we have to also read about the role of salivary gland. Now, what is the role of teeth? The teeth is there for the grinding, gritting, and the mastication process. We chew, we grind, we grit, we mix the food well. Otherwise, the food cannot be converted into a paste-like structure. So, teeth helps for mixing the food well, right? And we can make it into a paste with the help of all our teeth. So, how many teeth we have? How many types of teeth we have? We have incisor, canine, premolar, and molar teeth. Okay, so how many in total? We have, adults will have 32, and the young ones, adolescents, will have 28, and small children, milk teeth, will be 20 in number. Clear? Okay. Now, these teeth, they have different role. Incisor has its role tearing, and canine also meat tearing or any hard object we can bite with incisor. Premolar, gritting and grinding. Molar also does the same thing, gritting, grinding, and mixing of the food. Now, the second one is the tongue. Tongue also plays an important role for mixing of the food inside the buccal cavity, as well as it also plays an important role for the creation of taste in our food. The tongue has taste buds, and it is one of our, comes under the sense organs. It can sense the taste of different types of food. It sends the signals to brain so that the brain can understand whether we are eating a salty food, a sweet food, or a sour food, or a bitter food. Clear? So, tongue helps to identify the taste of the food. Now, coming to the role of salivary gland. Salivary gland secretes a secretion which is called as secretes saliva. Okay, this is playing an important role for the digestion process. Now, the gland secretes the saliva, and the saliva is capable of a partial digestion of the food. Now, how it is doing the partial digestion? What does the saliva contain? Saliva is a fluid-like structure, slimy fluid-like structure. So whenever we see some food, favorite food, we can see the saliva is getting secreted in our mouth, right? So the secretion of saliva is also connected with our nervous system. Now the saliva is secreted. Whenever we take the food inside, immediately the gland gets activated and it secretes the saliva. Now the saliva contains an enzyme which is called as the salivary amylase. Okay, salivary amylase. Okay, salivary amylase is an enzyme which can act on the carbohydrate food and starts the digestion in the buccal cavity itself. Clear? So the enzyme is capable enough to digest 90% of the carbohydrate what we eat in our food. But the reason for not doing so is we always eat the food in a hurry. We never chew the food properly. That is the reason parents always advise the children to chew it properly. Some people, without knowing the scientific reason, they know just the fact it will help in the digestion. So they insist on the children to chew the food properly. So this is the scientific reason behind it. How much longer time you chew the food inside the buccal cavity, that much good it is for the carbohydrate digestion. So majority of the carbohydrate, if it gets digested in the mouth itself, then there will be good digestion at the last part of the final digestion of the carbohydrate. Right? Okay. Now let us go to the next part. The next part is the esophagus. So before going into that, I will just show you the drawing and you can locate. So this part is the mouth. Okay. So mouth enters into the pharynx. Mouth, then buccal cavity. Then buccal cavity. The next part is called pharynx. So pharynx is a location which is opening for both the windpipe as well as food pipe. The food pipe is called as the esophagus. The windpipe is called as the trachea. Clear? Okay. So here what happens, there is a valve between the two tubes, right? As the pharynx is a common passage, and from here we can just imagine another tube is also running as the windpipe. Okay. So as it is a common passage, so there is a flap, muscular flap like structure which guards this two opening. Okay. So that flap is called epiglottis. The flap is called epiglottis, which guards the opening of both the esophagus as well as the windpipe. Normally what happens, the epiglottis covers our esophagus. Why? Because we do not eat food all the time, right? So epiglottis is needed to open the esophagus, not while chewing. While swallowing the food, it should open the tube of esophagus and close the tube of the windpipe. Otherwise what is going to happen? The food, instead of going into the esophagus, the food will run into the windpipe. We all must have experienced it, like while eating hurriedly or drinking hurriedly, the food or water droplets would have entered into our windpipe and we become restless, right? Unless and until the particle comes out of our windpipe. It is because of the slight misfunctioning of the epiglottis. But on a regular basis, the epiglottis guards both the windpipe as well as the food pipe. Clear? So food pipe is closed by epiglottis all the time. the windpipe is open. Why? We are breathing all the time. We need to keep our trachea open, right? So the moment you swallow the food, that moment it has to just move to the other side and cover the windpipe. So the epiglottis moves this side and covers the windpipe, right? So you can try it at home, that you try to swallow or spit while taking the breath. It is not possible. You cannot swallow the food or swallow the spit while you take the breath. So you have to block the breath and then you can swallow. Clear? So how the breath is blocked? The breath is blocked by this muscular flap which has turned from the esophagus towards the windpipe. So epiglottis covers windpipe, so we feel we are blocking the windpipe and we swallow, and immediately the epiglottis moves back to its original position, covering the esophagus. Clear? And one more thing, esophagus. What is the role of esophagus? The esophagus plays important role in sending the food into the stomach. The esophagus is supplied with we are talking about esophagus. Okay? Esophagus supplied with special muscles, okay, and they carry out a function called peristalsis. Okay, many a times this is asked in question. What is peristalsis? Define peristalsis. What is peristaltic movement? Now what is this peristalsis? The peristalsis is the rhythmic movement of the special muscles present in the esophagus, right? So the peristalsis is the rhythmic movement of muscles. Okay? So this rhythmic movement not only found in the esophagus, it can be found in many different parts of our body where the peristaltic movement is required. So finally what happens? The esophagus sends the food. Now the food is coming from the mouth, okay? The mouth from here, it is coming, and now it is going to reach the stomach. Clear? So the next part what we are going to discuss is our stomach. Clear? Okay. So stomach is a bag-like structure, sac-like structure. Okay? It's a muscular sac-like structure which stores the food for some time and carries out a partial digestion. Clear? So let us see how it carries out the partial digestion. So storing of food definitely happens in the stomach. So for some time the food remains in the stomach and then partial digestion takes place. Then later what happens? It is sent into the next part of the alimentary canal, which is known as the small intestine. So let us understand what are the different events which take place in the stomach. So the stomach is muscular, as I told now already, and it also contains many special type of glands, right? And the collection of these glands is called as the gastric glands. The lining of the stomach contains or filled with this gastric gland. So let us just see what are present in this gastric glands. Or we can say what role this gastric glands play during the digestion process. So let us see what are the things. The gastric glands secrete gastric juice. Okay, the gastric gland secrete gastric juice. Now what does this gastric juice contain? Definitely the gastric juice must be containing some substances which is facilitating, helping the process of digestion. So when we talk about this gastric juice, it contains three different things. Okay, so what are these three different things? It is concentrated hydrochloric acid. It also contains pepsin, and it also contains mucus. Okay, so these are the three things which are present in the gastric juice, and definitely the gastric juice components must be having some role in the digestion process. Now one by one, let us see what role this particular substances play in the digestion inside the stomach. So when the food is in the stomach, definitely these three components has some role in that. So let us see how do they play the role for the helping of digestion. Now what is the role of hydrochloric acid? Right, so role of hydrochloric acid is, first one, it provides acidic medium for pepsin. Okay, it provides acidic medium for the pepsin. So now what is this? Sorry, it is N. Okay, acidic medium for pepsin. Now what is this pepsin? The pepsin is a protein digesting enzyme. Clear? So the protein digesting enzyme is also secreted in the gastric juice from the gastric glands, right? And the protein digesting enzyme is secreted actually in an inactive form, and it gets activated with the presence of concentrated hydrochloric acid. Clear? So the pepsin actually produced from the gland in an inactive form. How it gets activated or how it gets reactive, how it is ready for the reaction, it is by the presence or because of the presence of hydrochloric acid. So hydrochloric acid not only provides an acidic medium, it also activates the inactive pepsin. Okay, the inactive pepsin, right? And the one more rule. Now what is a providing acidic medium? The pepsin enzyme needs a pH which should be acidic in nature. If you don't know about pH, also in chemistry you will be reading about pH. pH determines whether a particular substance is acidic, basic, or it is neutral, right? So 7 point of pH is always neutral. 7 to 14 number of pH is basic, and 7 to 0 coming towards the 0 is acidic. Some enzymes, they prefer basic medium, pH must be 7 to 14. Some enzymes, they will prefer acidic medium, that is 7 to 0. So it depends on the particular enzyme in what condition it will act the best for the digestion. Clear? So the acidic medium is required by this particular enzyme. Now who is going to provide the acidic medium? The concentrated hydrochloric acid. Apart from that, the pepsin is secreted in an inactive form. So the hydrochloric acid also activates the pepsin, and once it gets activated, it provides the acidic medium for its enzymatic actions. Clear? Apart from that, the hydrochloric acid having one more role, it kills, I will write it here, it kills germs in the stomach. Clear? So these are the roles of hydrochloric acid. It provides acidic medium for the pepsin. It activates the inactive pepsin and converts it into active pepsin, and apart from that, it kills the germs which are present in the stomach or which has entered through food into the stomach. Clear? Okay. Now what is the role of pepsin here? Pepsin, as I told, it is a protein digesting enzyme. So whatever protein is there in the food protein is immediately acted by this pepsin. Clear? So pepsin acts on protein of the food and converts them into simpler forms, that is peptides plus peptones. Okay, these are simplified proteins. So when we talk about digestion or conversion into a very large molecule into small molecule, it cannot take place in one step, right? So it has to have some intermediate steps. So slowly it can break. Suppose I give you a bigger large stone and I will ask you, you just convert it into small particles, sand-like particles. Is it possible for you to do it in one go? It is not possible. So you will take, first break it into little larger pieces, then you take this little larger pieces into smaller pieces, then even more smaller, and finally each smaller one you will just put it or convert it into tiny particles or sand-like structures. So that is what is happening in the digestive system also. A very large protein immediately cannot be converted into simple molecule, right? So what is happening? Large will become little less large, little less large, little smaller, smaller, even smaller, even smaller, and finally the smallest particle gets converted into the simplest molecule. Clear? Okay. So this is how the protein, if the larger molecule, the little simpler molecule is peptides and peptones. Immediately it cannot get converted into the simpler molecules. Clear? Okay. Now what is the role of mucus here in the digestive system? The mucus protects the inner lining of stomach from the action of concentrated hydrochloric acid. Okay, so the mucus protects the inner lining. Now when the hydrochloric acid, we know that acids are very corrosive in nature, and in that the stomach is secreting the concentrated form of hydrochloric acid. Definitely it may burn, it may harm, it may destroy the tissues of the stomach. So who is helping for that? The acid is being secreted, at the same time the gastric gland secretes the mucus which protects the inner lining of the stomach, so that the acid will not come in contact with the inner lining directly. So in between the acid and the inner lining, the mucus layer will be there. Mucus is a slimy fluid-like substance, like nasal mucus is there, or the mucus can be found in different parts of our slimy fluid-like structure. So that protects the inner lining of the stomach.